sounds in the kitchen cooking up, boy.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Broken Vase. I am your host, Ashley, and today I have a special guest with me, one of my closest friends, Rich, who we're going to talk about purpose. And so today's topic is going to be basically about everyone having a purpose and what that purpose looks like for him, and breaking down purpose in general. So life purpose consists of the central motivation of different aims when it comes to goals of a person's life. So basically, the reason why we live and breathe, the reason why we get up in the morning. Our sense of purpose tends to change over the course of our life. So what we wanted or our purpose that we felt in our teenage years may be very different from our adult years. So purpose is not a destination, it's more of a journey, it's a practice. It's a long-term aim that is meaningful to the self, but goes beyond the self, aiming to make a difference in the world that we live in our society today. So without further ado, we're gonna introduce one of my friends, Rich, and we're gonna ask him some questions based off of his purpose and what he believes that is. Hi, Rich. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing? How are you doing, Ashley?
I'm doing good. It's been a long week,
Yeah.
so I'm glad it's a chill day.
Oh yeah, I feel that. I definitely feel that. It's been the same for me, as we talked about before. It's definitely been busy for me as well.
And you know what? With your journey that you're going through right now, this was like the perfect topic to talk about because it's like it's raw. It's you're in it right now. You're going through another process of your journey. So if you don't mind, I have some questions for you because I know we talked offline based off of your purpose and what that meant for you. And I thought it was really interesting. I thought it would be very inspiring for other people to hear what you had to say when it came to purpose, your life purpose.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Right. So my first question, do you believe it is a challenge for people to find their purpose in life?
100%. And the reason why I feel that way is, of course, I've mentored young people all the time. And so one of the things that comes up often is, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? What direction am I supposed to be going in? I think you find this a lot when you're talking to young college students. College students tend to have that mindset that I'm supposed to be going in this direction. And what you often find, especially with college students, is when their life is not going particularly in that direction, then they start to question, like, okay, what is my purpose, or where am I supposed to be at? And it kind of makes them a little anxious. It kind of brings this sense of not knowing of where they're going. I think the other thing that happens is when you get to the older generation. So it's not just the young people, but it's also the older people as well. So if you've heard of midlife crisis, right? And I think what happens with that is you have so many people who get into their 40s and their 50s, and then they realize, like, oh, snap, I really haven't done any of the things that I wanted to do in my younger years. Like, what have I been doing my last 20, 30 years? And so when they reach this point of where they're like, well, my life is about to end, I need to go try to find something. They'll go buy a fast car, right? Men will buy a fast car, or they'll try to do all these things to try to bring some type of meaning to their life. And so finding what your purpose is definitely probably one of the biggest challenges we all have in life, because going back to the definition that you used in the beginning in the intro, right, it really drives you to do what you do every single day. So it's a huge challenge. And I think it probably is, like I said, the biggest challenge that we have in life, trying to figure out what your purpose is.
Agreed, 100% agreed. I feel like especially today, um, people have so much freedom and so many opportunities and so many choices versus back in the day when freedom was definitely in question. A lot of people didn't have their freedom. A lot of people didn't have the same opportunities as everyone else. So now you have many opportunities and so many choices, and trying to figure that out, what that means for that individual. I agree with you. In a sense, it is definitely challenging, no matter your age or your status. Do you believe that you have found your purpose in life? And if so, what is that purpose?
Yeah. So I do. I think I have. And really, I think what is important for your audience is going back to what you said in the intro again. Why do I wake up every day? Uh, what is your why? Right? When you think about your why, that leads you to what your purpose is. And what I was thinking about this last night. The purpose, your purpose can't be a dollar amount, right? So it can't be I want to make a certain amount of money. That's my purpose. That's not a purpose. Uh, that's a goal. And there's a difference between goal and purpose, right? Goal is just something that you're trying to achieve in a moment, but once you achieve it, it's gone. Purpose is what you're driven towards your whole entire life. And so once you find it, that is your driving factor of what you are doing. That is your purpose. So when I think about myself and finding my purpose, I really had to go back to the core of, who I am, where my life is going, and where I want my life to go. And so you know this, and your audience is about to find out. I'm a Christian, and my whole being is based in my faith. Now, when I was younger, when I first became a Christian and I was first learning about God and Jesus and who He is, I would say that I wasn't as driven because I didn't know much about God. I was still in this idea of learning, and my life changed when I found out that my purpose was in Him. And so I'm going to read this passage of Scripture real quick that I always go back to, and I always remind myself of when I think about my purpose, when I think about my why. And so in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13, this is a book that we believe to be written by King Solomon. We don't know because the writer never actually tells who he is. And so we believe that it could be King Solomon. There's evidence that says that is Solomon, but again, the writer actually never tells who it is. But the writer says in verse 13, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. So when I think about what my purpose is every single day, that is my purpose, is to fear God and to keep his commandments. Now, what many people might be thinking about is, okay, well, what does that look like? What does that even mean? And I would say, well, for me to get to that point to find out what it means, I really have to go into the Bible and see what God has directed of his people. And so I use that based on the way I see Jesus, based on the way that I see the apostles and how they treated people and how they loved people and how they actually lived their life. And now I'm transforming my life to be like that. Once I realize that, now I know why I'm waking up, right? I'm waking up every day to serve my Lord, right? And also to bring people to the gospel. That's why I live every day. And sometimes that might not always look like a conversation. Sometimes that just might be simply an interaction. So if I am on a street and I'm passing by somebody, hey, how you doing? What? Especially if it's somebody who doesn't really get spoken to often or people are mean to them. How are you responding to people? What light are you bringing into the life of people? And so that's one thing. Jesus talks about being a light. You see that in Matthew chapter 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, talking about a light on a hill, salt of the earth. How am I a light when I am interacting with people? And so I can move, I can interact, I can respond, I can be who I am because I always remember and I always go back to what my purpose is. And my purpose is in the Lord.
That was well put together. one thing that really stood out, and it was like, it hit me when you said it, was purpose is different from goals. And I believe that we get that mixed up. And it's one of the reasons why we don't feel 100% fulfilled when we do things, because like you said, you hit that goal and you're like, that satisfaction, being satisfied with that, and that excitement, it just goes away. Like, for an example, for me, everyone knows I'm 100% about learning, about knowledge, about going to school, about getting degrees. A lot of people, they don't care for that, and they have their reasons, not to. But for me, I love to be given a degree or certification for learning something, and putting in the work to earn that. So I remember getting my master's degree, and the day I got it, the day I was done, I was so excited. Then the very next day, I was just like, what's next? What's next? So I really had to sit down and evaluate, what is the purpose? Like, what is my purpose for doing these things? Because that was a goal. Like, my purpose isn't to get a million degrees. That's not my purpose. My purpose is far bigger than that. However, putting in the work to earn those degrees will help me in my purpose, fulfill what my purpose is. So I think that was one of the main things that we struggle with as a society, not separating the two, and we focus more on goals, and we fail to look into what our actual purpose is.
Can I say one thing as well? I'm sorry. Go ahead. You want to say something? I think you find this a lot in mothers, particularly mothers who are married. This is what I mean. And I saw this post the other day. I have even heard my mom say it, not to use my mom as an example, but I've even heard my mom say it a time or two. Mothers who are married and have kids, they lose themselves in their relationships with their husbands and the relationship with their kids. It almost becomes to a point of where they feel like they're no longer a person. It's almost as if they devote so much of their time to making sure their husbands are good, making sure their kids are good, to now they almost don't know who they are themselves. And so it becomes a situation of where they don't know what their purpose is. They might go back to a time before maybe they were married or had kids, and it was a situation of, oh, I remember I was in college and I was working towards this and I was doing that and I was all of these things, and then when I got married and I started having kids, and it's like my whole life became about them, and they almost it makes them feel like they're not worthy, or they feel like their lives is useless because they feel like their whole being is just in this person or these little people here. And I saw a Facebook post the other day where a friend of mine, she had made mention of that. She took a picture of herself playing. She used to be in karate. She was a black belt, and she was just saying, this is who I was, and she was in tears, and she's like, I want to be back to that person. And what I always try to tell people who are in that situation is you have to literally find who you are. Like, you can be a wife, you can be a mother, and you can still be you, and all of those things can exist in the same exact space, right? All of those things can take priority and take precedence. And it's really good when you're in a healthy relationship, because then, for the husband, he'll see with the wife, hey, I know that you need time to go do your thing. I'll take care of the kids. You go work on whatever it is you need to work on. And so I often say, it's hard. You got priorities, especially if you have young kids, but it's like, never lose that focus within yourself of your why. Who you are at your core is your why. And then everybody else just comes to match that. And so you don't have to lose yourself just because you have kids. You don't have to lose yourself just because you're a husband. Certainly they're a part of your life and they are an important part of your life, But if you have a purpose, whatever your purpose is, not just the goal, but whatever your purpose is, you can still serve in your purpose and still have beautiful relationships with a spouse or even kids. And you see the same thing with men all the time. I use women as an example because that's what you tend to see a lot. But men, it can be the same where they can lose themselves in certain aspects of different things, trying to find out, what their purpose is and who they are. And I believe your purpose has a lot to do with who you are.
It's crazy that you say that. So a couple of different points from what you just said. As someone who was married and had kids, so I had that dynamic where I had a husband and I had two kids in the house. It was extremely hard, especially working from home at the time, to find time for myself. Because in that moment, like the only hats that I was wearing was being a mom, being a wife, and then of course like working. Those were the only things. There was no time or no time that I set aside to be like, okay, this is the time period where I'm going to focus on what my purpose is. And it goes back to that sense of purpose. Your sense of purpose can change. It could change the pathways of your purpose can change based off of the circumstances that you're going through. Because I mean, back in the day when I didn't have any kids, I had a lot of time to focus on myself. And I look back and I'm like, at one point when I first came in like the military, I wanted to be a pilot. Like that was my goal. I want to be a pilot. I want to fly. I want to completely change when I had children. And it's like, it made me realize that sometimes when we think our purpose is one thing, or there's one way to get to fulfilling what our purpose is, life reminds us like, hey, that's actually not your purpose. That's actually not your thing. We're going to leave that to someone else. Or, okay, that's not the way that we're going to take to get there. We're going to actually take a detour. So this is the route that we're going to take to get there. So I think the main thing is just making sure that we never give up. Never give up on what our purpose is or what we feel like our purpose is, or even finding that out. I researched, and only 25% of people feel like they know what their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
Only 25%.
Yeah.
1/4 of us. That's it. That's it. And that was, they feel like they know what their purpose is, not like 100%. Because how could you tell? Like, how could I tell you what your purpose is? That's something inward. That's something that you would have to, know for yourself. And when you mention like men also go through that same like mindset of I don't know what my purpose is. And I want to say, and I believe that it's because of how we made society, as far as the men are supposed to be providers. So a lot of men feel like their purpose is to provide for their families, for their children, for their significant other. So that's their main focus. I go to work. I get up every day. I work 1, 2, 3 jobs. I pay the bills. I make sure the kids are okay. And that's my purpose. Mm-hmm. Not being able to dig a little deeper and be like, no, that's my responsibility. And that's my heart as far as my family and my children. But that's not my sole purpose in life.
I think, men is very interesting. Because I feel like in today's world, it might have been like this from the beginning of time. We have kind of put men in a box of things that you're supposed to do, and that's who you are. You're supposed to be a provider. You're supposed to be an ATM, and you're supposed to be that's who you are, right? And the thing about it is, if you're not fulfilling that box, right, provide security, provision, money, ATM, all this stuff, then you're not a man. The whole box falls apart. You're no longer a man if you're not doing those things. That's how we have defined manhood. I think that's wrong. To your point, I think that's the responsibility of being a man, but I don't think that defines what a man is. Um, so I think it's very important for everybody, and for the man, when that is your only driving force, right? Is you want to be able to do these things, and that's it. You're going to be in that same position as the moms are, because that's all you know that you are. That's all you know to be. But you don't know why you're waking up every day. You don't know why you're doing the things that you're doing. One of the most important things, and I'm gonna bring this back to faith a little bit. I always, when I'm having Bible studies with people, one of the things that I always say is know why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you, just to use an example, why are you partaking of the Lord's Supper? Do you know why? A lot of people can't answer that question. Do you know what the gospel is? A lot of people call music gospel. I don't use that term gospel music, but do you actually know what the gospel is? And so I bring that to this conversation. Why do you do the things that you do? Why are you going to work every day? Why do you want a family? Why do you want kids? Is it just for your own personal, your own personal reasons, or is there something bigger that comes along with that? Is there a purpose that comes with that? You know that having a family fits into the overall goal, excuse me, the overall pathway of where you're trying to go as far as what your purpose is. Do they fit into that? And there's nothing wrong with bringing them into that, but it's important to really figure out what that is. The other thing that I want to say is important about what you said is understanding there could be different pathways. One of the things that I think is very important in finding your purpose is realizing that it might not be conventional, right? It might not be the same road that everybody else is taking. So let's say you have a teacher who she sees that her purpose in life is really to go out and spread knowledge and be able to help other people, because I think teachers is one of that professions that we don't look at very highly, but it's probably, if not one of the most important professions that we have out there. And her purpose might be to impact lives. Okay, the first thing that she's probably thinking about is, okay, what grade do I want to teach? It matters on some sort of a scale, but in the grand scheme of things, you can be a teacher in multiple ways. Nobody says that you have to be in a schoolhouse teaching, right? You can be a tutor. You can be some type of a coach. There are so many different ways that you can take this, and sometimes it's not the conventional way that's going to get you there. Sometimes you have to think outside of the box of, well, how can I actually use my skills to be able to meet my purpose of wanting to help people, wanting to teach people, want to instill in people greater knowledge. And that can happen in a multitude of ways. One of the things that's a blessing for us now is the fact that we've been given the platform of social media. It's a curse and a blessing at the same time, right? But it gives you a platform. How are you using your platform? And so one of the things that, right, like you, I think about you because you have a platform now of where you can reach people that maybe you wouldn't have been able to reach if it wasn't for this. You can now instill in people and get people to learn about different aspects of other people's lives that maybe they wouldn't have seen, and it's because of this platform that you built. And I would say, through your life experiences and through your life challenges that you've had, you've been able to really grow and develop and see, okay, what is my purpose? And one thing, we've always talked about, Ashley, you love helping people. And I feel like that is a great part of your purpose is your ability to want to help people. Now, how does that look? Don't know. It can look like a multitude of ways. It really can. And I think, you will find that eventually. And I think that this platform is a part of that. But I think that's the important part too, is understanding that it doesn't have to follow the conventional rules that we normally draw out for ourselves. Because if you try to always go the conventional way, it's not going to work. So try to think outside of the box on what it comes to as it pertains to your purpose.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, thinking outside the box, because it brings me back to when was that moment where you realized this is my life purpose? When was that moment for you?
I would say when I joined the military. And the reason why was because I remember it was the first time when I went to basic training, it was the first time that I felt alone. And I felt alone in such a way where it was like the only thing I had was God. And it's funny because, you could always write home or you can always talk to people, but it's like God was the only thing I felt I had that was familiar. And essentially, I had lived my life for in the last couple of years, but I wasn't really doing the steps to really know him and what he wanted me to do based on what I can read in his word. And so it was in basic training that I was like, I really need to get closer to God because this is really what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, is bringing people to him, at the very least showing people him through me. And if I can do that and I can bring him glory, then I was like, it doesn't matter really how much money I make, where I live, if I get married, if I don't get married, if I have kids, if I don't have kids. All of those stuff were variables to me because I was set on that one thing, is of glorifying God. And it's funny because once you find that purpose, and my purpose might be a little different, might work different, but once I found my purpose, then I knew that everything in my life had to fit inside of that space, right? And so I think we've had a conversation before that, if and when I get married, I need somebody that's kind of going along that same track, because I can see where it would be a hindrance if I'm on this track and this person is on a different track going in an opposite direction. That's going to create kind of a binding, right? And so one thing I would never want to do is I would never want to try to push somebody off their track while I'm on mine. I would rather try to find somebody that's at the very least the going in the same direction. We don't have to be on the same track, but if we're going in the same direction, I think that we can be okay. So I would definitely say basic training. When I first joined the military, that's when I found it, and that's when things really drastically changed for me.
That is so crazy that you say that, because I read when I was doing my research on like life purpose. Because when I don't know, like sometimes when we have these familiar common words, we don't really, like, we use them all the time, but we don't really take the time to really research and figure out what it actually means. We just go off the basic definition or the basic thing that everyone's saying that this word means. So when I was doing my research, it said that once you find your purpose, your life will never be the same. So based off from what you said, I'm assuming that you believe that to be true.
Yes. Yeah. So much so to the point where, again, you realize it doesn't matter where you go, where you are. I'm in Oklahoma right now, right? Now, a part of that has to do with the fact of me being in the military, but a part of that has to do with this faith that I have in God, where it's like, well, it really doesn't matter where I go, I can serve you anywhere. Um, it changes you. It changes you because now you have that driving force of why you get up every day. And you have that driving force of what this means for you. It's almost like everything else starts to fall into place. You know, when I think men I think men confuse women a lot because when it comes to y'all, there's a reason as to why y'all do everything, right? And but I think behind your thought process, you often think to yourselves, okay, here's a reason as to why I'm doing this, right? You're always thinking about things. Sometimes the emotional can come in, and that's a whole different conversation. But for men, sometimes we do things and we don't even think about it, right? I can go take something out of the refrigerator, put it on the counter, leave it there, not even thinking about the fact that I just took this thing, put it on the counter, right? And if I was married, my wife might be looking at me like, why did he do that? I don't know. I just did it, right? There are some people who are walking through life like that, in the sense of I'm waking up, I have no idea why I'm doing what I'm doing. I have no idea where this is leading to. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing at all. I'm doing random things that are leading to nowhere. And I would say that's a very depressing state to be. And that might be why a lot of people do get depressed, is because they're trying to where am I going? Why am I doing this? But for me, when I wake up in the morning, I know where I'm going. I know why I'm doing this. My life does not end with this life. So I often think about the fact that it doesn't really matter what happens to me in this life, because I know my life has a different meaning. Again, going back to my faith, I read in Romans chapter 8, it talks about the idea that 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 all good things happen to those who serve the Lord. And the thing about it is, okay, well, what about for those Christians in the Bible that we see that were beaten, that were got their heads chopped off? What does it matter? They had a greater purpose. You see, is a situation where you can't do anything to me because I know my purpose is in God, regardless. Paul was put in prison. So James the apostle was beheaded. So John the Baptist was put in prison. He was beheaded. So they had a purpose. When you know what your purpose is, who cares? I'm going somewhere. I'm on a journey, right? And then and for somebody who's a Christian, our lives are not based on this individual world. Like, yeah, it's nice to have nice things, right? We read in the Bible, especially in Ecclesiastes, where I just read about the whole of man. Ecclesiastes talks about eating and drinking and enjoying what you have, what God has given you. You can have a great time, you can enjoy life, but the whole duty of man's all is to fear God and keep his commandments. Ecclesiastes is such a for anybody who's viewing this and they really want to learn more about God, really want to know more about their life, and they're really getting interested. I'd say Ecclesiastes is a good book to read, because what it goes through, the chapters of Ecclesiastes, the writer talks about how really this idea of finding purpose. That's really what it is. And so he starts from this place of saying that everything, he uses the word vanity, or it's meaningless. He talks about the idea of it's trying to grasp after wind. You think about you can't grab it. You can't grab wind. In other words, it's meaningless trying to grab it. And so what he does is he goes on this journey. He tries to find purpose and pleasure. And so he says, I have female servants and male servants and all these musicians and all these things. I made this wonderful life for me. And at the end of the day, I realized it was meaningless. He goes on this journey of, I tried to find all the knowledge in the world, and I was trying to figure this out and learn this and do all these things. And it was meaningless and grasping after the wind. He talks about the idea that, what I'm starting to realize and what I'm starting to see is, when you really look in life, bad things happen to good people. good things happen to bad people. Why is this? Why is there so much confusion? And what he realizes, it all is meaningless. And so the conclusions that he comes up with in Ecclesiastes is, hey, enjoy the things that you have been given in life, but understand that your all is to fear God and keep his commandments. And if you have that mindset, you can kill me. You can throw me in prison. I can be rich. I can be poor. I can be whatever I want to be as long as I fear God and keep his commandments. Purpose. So when you have purpose, it doesn't matter what comes. You're a completely different person.
That is perfectly said, because it's very, very often that we grow attachments to things that do not matter at the end of the day. There are plenty of times where your life changes for the better or it changes for the worse, when you look at it. You can be rich one day and then you can be poor the next day. You can be happy one day and then sad the next day. It's crazy how life works, and we grow these attachments to things instead of investing in ourselves. Like, this week has been a week for me that I've really poured, like, actively every second of the day. I was like, I'm going to pour into myself, and I'm going to feed myself. Not with food. I mean, I eat, but you know, I'm going to really feed my faith, feed my figuring out my purpose. I'm going to really feed that, because at the end of the day, anything could be taken away from me. But that's one thing that you cannot allow anyone to take away from you, is you actively pouring into your purpose. Nothing else matters. But anything can be gone tomorrow, but you still have that, your purpose, your faith, your whatever reason why you get up in the morning, you still have that. So this brings me to my last question, and it's called the broken vase question. So this question is going to be based off the overall meaning of broken vase. Broken vase is about talking about those challenges and those times where we felt broken and how we got through them, or how we are getting through them. So my broken vase question for you is, when was a time that you felt like you were being challenged when it came to following your purpose, or when you felt like the pieces was not coming together and you maybe wanted to abandon following your purpose in life?
I would say that had to deal when I first joined the military as well. When I got to my first duty station, it was a very hard time for me, because now all of a sudden, and for the audience, just to give some context, I'm an aircraft mechanic. People might not know how aircraft mechanics are, but you know how mechanics are in general, just how they are, right? It's a very rough career field. Ashley can tell y'all, I'm not that type of a person. Like, I don't fit the mold of a mechanic. I don't. Y'all can probably looking on this looking on this video, y'all can look at it and tell them that I don't fit the mold of a mechanic. I don't. So when I get there, just the way that I was treated, the things that I would hear, was very, I would say, was very discouraging. I hated it. I hated being at work. I hated being in the area that I lived in. I never even took time to really go explore the area that I lived in. I just hated. I hated everything about it. And I gotten really into this state of where the only thing I wanted to do when I got off work was go get me something to eat and go to my room and go to bed and go to sleep. That's all I did. It was a very dark time, because I just hated life in that moment. I really I really did. And I would say the things that I would say the things that made it worse was trying to be a Christian in a space of where people didn't really believe in God. I didn't know how to navigate that. How do you navigate being in a space where people don't believe in God? How do you navigate in a space where if somebody's going through something and you're like, hey, I'll pray for you. Everybody starts laughing at prayer. Like, what is that going to do for anybody? How do you navigate, especially being young? How do you navigate being in a space like that? What I have seen time and time again with young people, especially, is they will leave their faith or they will leave whatever it is that they're working towards and kind of go towards what looks like the norm, kind of go towards the aspect of what is everybody else doing, the peer pressure that they have. And what I had to learn was, people are going to like you for you, and they're not going to like you for you. And those people who appreciate you, those are the people that you build bonds with eventually. And it took time, it took some years. But eventually, I found people who just accepted Myron from Myron. They did. They're like, "Hey, this is who you are, and but you're a cool dude." I think that's the aspect of the element of when it comes to Christians, and they don't think that we're just regular people. Some people don't act regular, right? But the reality is we really are just regular people. Like I can literally talk to anybody. I can have a conversation with anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. Like, I'm not going to treat you any different. And maybe perhaps that's the thing that's lost. So like this, as Christians, we're not supposed to treat anybody differently. We treat people with love. We treat people with respect. You just cool. Like you just be a cool person. And that's something that was really hard. That was a moment of where I was like, I don't know how long I can do this journey, because it was a really, really rough time for me. But I would say it was a needed time because that's another aspect, is the fact that sometimes we get frustrated and we get aggravated in the challenges, and it's in the challenges where we really become who we are. Had I never went through those challenges, then in every aspect, in every experience, in every conversation that I've been through within the last and 10, 11 years, I would have never known how to navigate those conversations. Now I can deal with people who believe different from me, and it's fine. It's cool. Like we have no issues. We have zero issues. I don't have to enforce my beliefs on anybody else. That's not why I am here. I might ask you a question, right? You might say something about God, and I'll answer the question for you. You'd be like, "Man, I don't really believe in that." Okay, cool. Like, I'm not gonna force it on you. The moment that you tell me, "Hey, I want to know more about this," then I'm gonna try to teach you. And then that's it. But it took me going through those times of people laughing because I still get laughs, people joking because I still get jokes, people trying to drag my name through the mud because people still try to drag my name through the mud. It took those moments to really get to a point of like, you know what? Now it kind of doesn't, going back to what we talked about earlier, it kind of doesn't matter what happens, what people say. I'm on this track and I'm in this train and we're heading north. We're heading in this direction. And there's not going to be anything that's going to derail me from that. I'm going to stay on my track. And I'm going to stay on my course. And people are going to, at every stop, Ashley, people hop on the train and we're good. And then the next stop, some people hop off. You have some people who are going to be on the train with you forever when it comes to your purpose. They're going to be on the journey with you forever. You're going to have some people who are going to get on till the next stop, and then they got to get off and get on their own train. You got people who are going to they're thinking about getting on the train, and they just don't. And then you have those people that are going to be on the train with you forever. And at the end of the day, it's all okay because it's your train It's your purpose.
That was well put. I don't know if you're about to tear up. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was well put. And I think when we realize that we don't take it personally, like you said, like some people are going to get on to the next stop and then they get off and they get on their own train. And a lot of times it hits us personally. Like, what do you mean? Like, you don't want to be on my train anymore? Like, what do you mean? Like, we were, like you said, like we were heading this way. And I believe that, but sometimes we do take that personally and it stops us because I'm one of those people where I do take people for their word. And when someone promises like, hey, I'm going to go through this journey with you, and they, like you said, get off at the first stop, it hits a little differently, and it makes you think like, what's going on. But I think as soon as we get to that realization to not take things like that personally, to understand that everybody is their own individual self. Everyone has their own individual purpose, whether they have children, whether they're married, whether they, have a business that a whole bunch of people work for them. They still have their individual purpose, and to not take it personally when they do have to start their own journey or go a separate way than what we're doing. So my last question for you is, what advice would you give someone who feels like they're having a hard time finding their purpose in life?
I think it starts with learning who you are. One of the most important things when it comes to this idea of purpose is learning you, learning your likes, learning your dislikes, learning why you like or dislike, learning why you do the certain things that you do. For some people, that's going to be a little bit of a traumatic experience, because a lot of that is digging back into your past, right? Past traumas. How did your parents treat you? How did exes treat you? How did all these people treat you? But once you learn who you are, once you learn your entitled being of your essence and who you are, then you can begin the journey of learning what your why is. Um, I also think that when it comes to purpose, there is an element of people that feel like you are born with this purpose. I want to challenge that a little bit. Um, because I don't think anybody is necessarily born to be on one track. And I think when people think about purpose, I think that's what they're looking for. Why was I born, right? What track was my train supposed to be put on? And like I'm on this track now, and I'm on this track now, and I'm on this track now. And I think you got to take that out of your head, is that's not really what it is. What you really need to think about as it pertains to your purpose is, what do you what do you want your life to be? Now, with that being said, I believe that your purpose can change. A lot of people don't, but I believe that it can. If I'm on this track and I know that I want to help as many people as I can. I want to be on this journey of where I am really helping people. I might not be able to be a doctor. You got to have a certain mental capacity and faculties to be a doctor. That might not be me. And for me, that wouldn't be me, because I ain't got the mental capacity and mental faculties to be a doctor. But can I still help people? Well, yeah, in so many different ways. Sometimes that looks like being a nurse. Sometimes that looks like being a teacher. Sometimes that looks like being a community, whatever, being out in the community and helping people. I think sometimes we think about it. I think when it comes to purpose, we all want it to look like six figures with a mansion and five cars. That's not purpose. That's something that you can obtain while being on this journey of traveling to get purpose. That's not purpose. Purpose is not monetary. Purpose is not um is not something that you can open every day and drive. That's not purpose. Purpose is not not as your TV screen that you look at. Purpose is literally your why. Why are you doing this? And so what I would encourage people to find out is, what do you want to do and why do you want to do it? Here's the other piece. It is very rare that people will often find fulfillment in selfish things. Most of the time, when it comes to people, fulfillment comes in serving other people. So going back to the idea of course, me, right, being a Christian, I think there are two elements of being a Christian. When and granted, this was a part of the law, this is part of the law of Moses, but it still is brought forward. The greatest commandments of the law of Moses was to fear God, right? Also love your neighbor as yourself. Those were the greatest of love God, love neighbor. Those were the two greatest commandments of the law of Moses. For the Christian, it doesn't change now. You love God, but you also love people. You love mankind. I think perhaps that's being lost in the religious world today, that it really is one of the biggest elements of being a Christian is loving people, serving people, helping people. Um, and I would say when it comes to purpose, fulfillment comes with your service to people. It really does. Think about why people start nonprofits. They don't start nonprofits for themselves. They start nonprofits to help people. Everything that we do in this life deals with helping people. Every job in the world is a customer service job. Have you ever thought about that? Every single job in the world is actually a customer service job. It is. Everybody wants to be business owners, right? Everybody wants to be entrepreneur. Well, how can you be a business owner and an entrepreneur if you're not providing a service or a product to another person? That's literally what it is. You're providing either and that's it. That is entrepreneurship. That's every business. That's everything in this life. You are either providing a service or you are providing a product to another person or another entity or another business. Everything in our lives is customer service. Well, people are like, well, what about entertainment? Customer service. Because guess what? If I don't make the music that you like, I'm not going to get paid. Right? Probably the reason why you see the music that we got going on right now is garbage, because they know what this new generation, not to hit on the new generation, but y'all Gen Zs out there, y'all like listening to some interesting stuff, right? It's providing customer service. They're going to provide what the people want. Now they might do it for another goal. I want money. Cool. But you're still providing a service. Football players, right? Customer service. They're entertainers in a sense, but it's customer service. Because if everybody stopped watching the football game, you wouldn't get paid. It's customer service. Everything we do is customer service. And so one of the things that I think that can help in finding your purpose is, how can you serve others? Not in the sense of necessarily what you get back, but in the sense of, this is what I want to do to serve, to help, to love. You will find the most fulfillment in service, not in self. And even when you think about what makes, they say the happiest people in the world are the people who have great relationships. You can only have great relationships when you serve.
Well put, Rich. You be you be spitting out some knowledge for real. That had you really thinking. Because I was just sitting here, I was like, yeah, the big two questions to ask a person when figuring out their life purpose. What do you want to do? What is your what? Why do you want to do it? What's the reasoning behind you wanting to do that? Leads you to thinking on a broader scale, the bigger picture, and finding your purpose. So to end this out, I have a couple things I wanted to do with you. It's a fill in the blank. So based off our conversation, based on how you're feeling right now, I just want you to fill in the blank with these three thoughts. So believe in the
why.
Believe in the why. Ooh, trust in the
Process.
Trust in the process, and live in the
Moment.
So believe in the why, trust in the process, and live in the moment. I love it. Oh, I love that. Believe in the why. I love that. Okay, so I do have my little butterflies because everyone knows butterflies are my thing. So, what is one thing that you want to let go of?
Fear.
Fear. Oh, interesting.
Can I say fear? I don't know how big you wrote that though.
It's not that big.
Okay. I would say fear of the unknown.
Ooh.
Because for me, you can't have faith if you have fear. And faith is dependent upon you not knowing. Literally, you not knowing.
Oh, I love that. So we're letting go fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown. Believe in the why, trust in the process, and live in the moment. And we're gonna put it in our broken base. That's done. We're letting go fear of the unknown. Thank you. This was like really like very, very interesting. I took a lot of like mental notes because I mean I talked to you offline. You already know like finding my purpose has been a very big thing, and it's very challenging because being someone like me, I don't think that there is one set purpose for me because like you said, I love to help others. And when I sit down and I think about like how can that happen? Like how can I help others? Some people get it one way. Like I can only help by this. And that's not the case. You can help by just being someone that picks up a phone call and talk to someone. That's helping. Just being someone that has knowledge and someone comes to you like, "Hey, I was thinking about, making a budget. Like, do you know like what that looks like? Oh yeah, let me help you. That's a service. You're serving someone for a greater purpose because it's not just having a conversation or like, oh, I know all about this. Let me just, let them know that I know this. This is helping someone either for their purpose, their pathway, your purpose, your pathway, or even both. Yeah. So I think that this was a really great episode. And I think that a lot of people would be inspired by it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm glad.
All for tuning in. Remember when you're thinking about what is your life purpose? What is your purpose in life? Ask yourself 3 additional questions. What is it that you want to do? Why is it that you want to do it? And lastly, is your why bigger than your what? If so, that deserves more looking into, more deep diving into figuring out your life purpose. Everybody has a life purpose, and what we do with our lives depend on us. And we are here to serve others, to pour into ourselves, and to live life to the fullest. I am Broken Vase. I am not destroyed, but in the perfect position for reform. This has been another great episode of Broken Vase. Thank you all for tuning in, and please tune in to next episode.